Greetings, everyone. I am Dr. Catherine Y. Brown. Today, I am absolutely excited to introduce you to my guest, Paula Swanson. Welcome, Paula.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here and agreeing to share your pulmonary hypertension journey with all of our viewers around the world, and just for allowing us to meet you and learn more about you. So for our viewers, can you please share where you reside at and just tell them a little bit about Paula, just basic fun stuff.
Well, my name is Paula. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Have lived here my whole life. I'm married and have 2 adult children and 5 grandchildren. I'm currently up north at our cabin, enjoying the time up here, and that's something we really like to do with our family.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I have 4 children, and my dream is to hopefully one day have 20 grandchildren. So
Well,
that's coming from an only child, though. So there you have it.
okay, there you go.
If I get one, I'll be happy.
Well, we had 2 sets of twins, so that's how the number grew to 5 pretty fast.
Beautiful, beautiful. So tell me, when did you first hear the words pulmonary hypertension?
Well, it was back when I was diagnosed in 1998.
Mhm.
I had never heard of it before.
Absolutely. And I always ask that because that is such a common response, Paula. People say they have never heard of those 2 words until they're diagnosed. What was your journey like? Did you have symptoms? How did you get the proper diagnosis from symptom to the diagnostic part?
Oh, I had symptoms probably for 4 years
Mhm.
prior to the diagnosis. I would get extremely fatigued, although I have lupus, and I would say, well, it's because of that. I would notice I was more short of breath, walking up the stairs, walking up hills. I would attribute that to, well, I'm just out of shape. I'm just not
Mhm.
exercising enough. And it was just kind of a scary way that I got diagnosed. I had gone to the doctor. I was supposed to go to work that day, and I felt like I had a lupus flare going up and I needed to get on some more prednisone. So I went to the doctor, and all of a sudden from there, they were listening to my heartbeat. They called 911 and took me off to the hospital. And I was scared to death. I had no idea what was going on.
Wow.
And I spent a month in the hospital. Back then, there weren't very many treatments. So, they put me on a calcium channel blocker. It wasn't working. My top pressure was 130. They were telling me, well, I don't think you're going to leave the hospital, so you better get your affairs in order. And that was that.
Oh my goodness.
But then I was fortunate. I had an appointment with a cardiologist already scheduled, but this incident happened where I ended up in the hospital. So I was lucky enough to see him at the hospital. And, they decided my pulmonary hypertension was secondary because of lupus.
Okay.
And now they've added sarcoidosis to it, but he said the insurance company would not cover Flolan, the IV medication, the only other medication that was available. So what he did is decided, he put in my chart that I had primary pulmonary hypertension. and I got started on Flolan. And, that got me out of the hospital, but Flolan was a lot of work. I had a lot of issues. My lines would fall out. Every 7 months, I'd be calling 911, going back to the ER. And I finally told the cardiologist, I said, I can't, let's come up with another plan.
Mhm.
And that was before, well, it was called Viagra back then, but it wasn't even approved yet for PH, but he let me try it. He put me in the hospital and monitored my pressures. And we found out that the, Viagra Revatio was working, if not better than the Flolan. So I got off Flolan.
Okay.
So, I probably was on Flolan for 3 years and then was able to transition over to Revatio.
For people that don't understand how complicated it is for many people to to use Flowland, could you share that? Because my mother also was on Flowland, but could you talk about the training or even what does that mean? Because someone might say, oh, they don't really understand what that means.
Oh, it was very intense. I mean, I was working as a nurse, and I am retired now. I did not work in a hospital. I worked in an adolescent clinic. I did a whole different type of nursing. So I'm not used to all the medical stuff, with the IVs. And so I felt like I needed to be trained just like anybody else. And it was just remembering all the steps.
Mhm.
I mean, I got this folder and a booklet and do this, do this, do this. And there were so many steps involved. And you were so scared that you were going to do something wrong. And you knew you didn't want to get an infection. So it had to be sterile. It was a lot of work. Supplies would come to my house, boxes
The
would be
big
on my
box.
doorsteps. I can't even lift them. So my husband would have to carry them upstairs. My bathroom, looked like a pharmacy.
Mhm.
Got vials and syringes and, the red box for the syringes and
And the batteries.
oh yes. Oh, that's right. I forget about the batteries, and then keeping Flolan in the refrigerator and always having one cassette, for backup. And then if you
And
go
ice packs.
somewhere, you better have ice.
Ice.
You better bring your extra pump and all your supplies. It's kind of all coming back to me. I mean, this is quite a while ago that I
Yeah.
was on Flolan, but it's something you never forget. And
Mhm.
taking a shower, getting all, putting saran wrap all over, my site. And it took a lot of time.
Yeah, it did. I
And
mean,
I was working still. And, it was just hard to get out the door.
absolutely. My mother was a nurse for 40
Oh,
years.
really?
Yes. And so, like you say, you have to get training unless you are used to dealing with medication, all those different things. She was, fortunate because she had been an ER nurse, but I understand exactly what you're saying, because when that first time that box came, I'm like, what is this? And it's like all these things, and you turn into, like you say, a medical supply store, because everything has to be organized. Just
Well, and being a nurse, you are somewhat organized.
yes.
So that part. But it's like when I would go to the ER, when my lines would fall out and they would have to put in, a new one, they'd have the Flolan going in through my arm. And then, the nurses didn't even know what it was. And then they would add like normal saline. So they were diluting my Flolan. And I kept saying to them, you can't do that. You can't do that. And they did it anyways. But that was back in the early days. And I think that's why I had mentioned in a statement that you have to be your own advocate.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not afraid of saying, you're doing that wrong. I'm the patient here.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Paula, because I remember we've had situations when my mother was living where you go to the emergency room and with Flowland, you had to take the ice packs. And we would say, can we put these ice packs in the freezer? And they say, oh, that's for staff use only. But
Yeah.
they didn't understand, right, the medication.
And when I would be in the hospital, I guess I was lucky. Well, in an actual room, they would give me my own refrigerator for my cassettes and, the ice packs. But right, yeah, that's the staff freezer. You can't use it. That's where we put our popsicles. So another incident I remember, I didn't travel much, but going through security, they would say, take it off and put it on the line. Put your fanny pack on the line. I'm going, sir, I can't. And I would just pull down my shirt and I would show them the central line. They kind of freak out and, then do the pat down.
That's right.
So,
yeah. So for those people that are watching, I would say, no, you're not alone. If that's happened to you, continue to advocate and be you are your best advocate sometimes. And don't get discouraged and continue to educate as Paula did. Like you shared, they're diluting and they can't. And so you had to speak up and advocate for yourself.
Yep.
Absolutely. You were sharing with me that your sister had a similar situation. Do you want to share that? Because I just want people to know sometimes if you have a family member that maybe has similar symptoms, maybe recommending that they get treatment.
Yeah, my older sister, she was 2 years older than me, was having similar symptoms to me, much later than when I got sick. But I would mention to her, I'm worried about you. This reminds me of how I felt. And she was busy with her careers and she didn't want to stop. So she eventually did go in and, was devastated that she was diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension. And sadly, she didn't make it. Her pH was more advanced. She was on Remicade, or not Remicade, Remodulin. And, she had a very hard time with that. She hated it, even though it was easier every 2 days, but she lost her battle. Mm-hmm. And I do think it's because she wasn't diagnosed early enough.
Yeah, so and I'm so
sad.
sorry for your loss.
Yeah, and we remember her. I mean, we started Flower Memorial Fund, and I use that with the Twin Cities support group. When someone's in the hospital or if someone had passed away, we would send flowers and it would be in her memory.
Beautiful.
So
absolutely beautiful. So now today, what is life like for Paula? You're in a cabin, you're spending time with family. You have life. And so, for those that are watching that maybe are not where you are in the journey, just maybe some words of encouragement.
Yeah, well, I did need to add a second medication. So it was Lutaris, so it's an oral medication. So it's so much easier on oral meds. You feel more like a normal person, and they are obviously working. I do have good days, bad days, just like anybody else, but just, I'm still here, and I was told I wasn't supposed to still be here, and I'm determined to not let this disease get me.
I love it. So in our mantra is awareness, empowerment, and hope. together we can make a difference. And so we have the nonprofit in my mother's honor, which is the Roberta Baines Wheeler Pulmonary Hypertension Awareness Group. My question to you is, when you hear those words, awareness, empowerment, and hope, what does that bring to mind to you personally that maybe other people need to know?
Well, you have to have hope. I think, and staying positive really helps. And it is good to, go to PH support groups and get support from others and share your stories, and you get encouragement from each other.
Oh, absolutely. Building a community, it definitely makes a difference. So I have asked you so many questions, even before the camera was rolling. Is there anything that you want to share about your journey, or in general that maybe I have not shared with you, have not asked you?
Well, I mean, one of the things was, when you get diagnosed with PH, they say, well, you're not going to be able to have surgery because they don't want to give you general anesthesia because they're afraid of your oxygen levels going way down. But, I've had 2 hip replacements, since my diagnosis, and, I survived that. And it's just like, you gotta keep going.
I love it. Those 2 words, Paula, keep going. And many people need to hear that. Is there anything you would maybe share with the medical community? And I ask that because there is a common theme and similarity between sometimes people not getting diagnosed soon enough, or even sometimes inconsistencies in terms of maybe providers or medical professionals not even being familiar with PH in general. But is there any advice that you would give for somebody that's in the medical community watching this?
Listen to your patients. You know, explore, all diagnoses. Because I think there probably are still some providers that don't know what PH is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rare disease.
Yeah, it's a rare disease. So listen to your patients, educate yourself, and you bring up a good point, Paula. You know your body because you're in it every day. So you definitely are worthy to be listened to.
Yeah, when something's not working right. So, and I knew that for 4 years, but I was told I had asthma, and I was told I had bronchitis or pneumonia. I mean, that went on for 4 years until I ended up in an emergency situation. So I was fortunate.
You are fortunate, and we are thankful that you are here with us. We're going to stay in touch with you, Paula, and I truly appreciate you so much for being here with me today.
Well, it looks beautiful where you are outside.
Thank you. This is my virtual background. I was actually at the location and took a picture of it.
Oh.
But yes, thank you. And to our viewers, you have met Paula Swanson today, and she has reminded us to stay positive, to advocate for ourselves, and also to be educated and informed. And that is a beautiful message that we all need to be reminded of. And remember that one word that she brought out, I gave her 3, and the one word that she held on to was hope. And we hope that listening to her story gives you hope. Again, I'm Dr. Catherine Y. Brown, your host, and thank you for joining me on this journey as I continue on the road to 100 interviews to hear about people's journey with pulmonary hypertension. Thank you. Thank you, Paula.
All right.
Oh, it's so good having you. So wonderful, wonderful. We've got a lot of work that we're doing, and I'm going to keep you updated on how we're going to get to the 100. How about that?
That sounds great.